I messed up tonight. I lost another fight. I still mess up, but I'll just start again. I keep falling down. I keep on hitting the ground. I always get enough to see what's next. Birds don't just fly, they fall down and get up. Nobody learns without getting it wrong. I won't give up, no, I won't give in till I reach the end and then I'll start again. No, I won't leave, I wanna try everything. I wanna try even though I could fail.
Hello, once again, and welcome back to Zootopia Minute, the minute-by-minute podcast where we look at every individual minute of the Disney movie Zootopia and take a look at its politics, its message, whatever it's trying to say. My name is Simul, and I am here with my co-host,
Choco, how are you guys doing?
and we are looking at minute 7. So that is from timestamp 7:00 to 7:59.
And that's right around when she climbs over the ice wall, impressing her polar bear coach, and ends when she talks to Assistant Mayor Bellwether and says, "It has always been my dream since I was a kid."
Yeah, again with the very nicely lined up segments. of
Perfectly
scene.
timed. Now I'm suspicious that maybe Disney's making this too formulaic, so everything happens on the dot, so it could fit within this cohesive cookie cutter structure to just pull out our heartstrings and get the action moving along.
No, I just know that this will be compensated for later on in the film when, like, right in the middle of some epic monologue, it's just cut in half or something on the minutes.
Well, let's see how that goes then.
Yeah. But this was a pretty great minute. It sort of picks up where the last one left off, of course, with Judy's training, and this minute begins right at about where the movie starts turning around the results of her training. Before she was struggling pretty hard, and now she's doing quite well, and she's able to take down a giant rhino.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like we were saying, this movie kind of condenses what we'll normally see as a pivotal arc for a character over a course of a longer story. And this would be the moment where you have like the Rocky Balboa epic
Yeah,
song.
I was just
or,
saying.
or I was thinking the South
montage
Park
music.
or the South Park "Now You're a Man" song. Man.
Exactly.
So I guess we have an interesting scene. One thing I kind of liked was how she took down the rhino.
Yeah, she used her environment to do that. Did some cool rebound thing.
I guess carrying over from like my personal history with the last episode, when I was saying that my specific family line. There's some royalty. There's also a specific style of martial arts that we like to do because us Asians are a bit small, especially compared to a lot of the other Asian cultures. Ours is pretty small, so we don't have size on our side. So we have to normally make use of our small nature. So our martial arts style actually makes use of being small and limber and using the opponent's strength against them. So if the opponent punches, we grab their arm and try to swing them down. So using their weight against them, which I kind of see what Judy was doing here, using the strength of the punch and kicking it back onto the
That's
rhino.
a big thing in Aikido, right?
Yes.
Redirecting your opponents.
Yes, exactly. You'll see a lot of martial arts use this style because it's very effective when combating a stronger enemy, physically and size-wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a funny scene just on its own, really. That nice slow-mo with like the mouth guard flying out of his jaw and everything. It's like, man, that bunny packs a punch.
Exactly. And I hope you guys are actually doing well because depending on when this episode is out, we would either have Hillary or Trump in office. So we may either break ground and have the first female president who also had sex with a previous president, or we might finally have a game show host as president. So...
Oh, so both are just such wonderful choices.
I mean, I think that the fact that we might have a president who had sex with a previous president will be a more interesting tidbit
Hey,
in history
we don't.
books.
Technically speaking, we don't know.
Yeah,
if
we
that
don't know, but
in the game.
a married president, yes. Like, it will be a more
Uh-huh.
interesting tidbit in the history books than we had the host of The Apprentice as president.
Yeah. Oh boy. And we were thinking about that because this minute later on also includes the introduction of the mayor of Zootopia himself, Mayor Lionheart, who is very pompous and has the same voice as Cave Johnson from Portal 2, which I found amusing.
I don't know video game stuff.
Oh my gosh.
That's one thing you're going to learn about me. I have all the video game references just fly over my head.
Make life take back the lemons, Choco.
I don't know what that means. But I would rather vote for Mayor Lionheart than I would Hillary or Trump.
Yeah, can we just write him in, Mayor
Yeah.
Lionheart?
Horrible. All right, we're not going to get too much into politics because we probably will later. But if you know us personally, you probably know who we are voting for, or if we even voted at all. Because I realized that since I'm now living in Texas, I would either have to register as a Texas resident to get in-state voting, or I would have to send an absentee ballot by mail to California, and I think I just missed the deadline for both, so I will not be voting in this election. So don't blame me, whoever we get.
It's so pivotal, though.
It is pivotal.
What people say, I don't really believe that. But anyway, let's steer away from that for now. Get back to Zootopia, which is a much happier subject.
Is it now? We see Mayor Lionheart pushing his little assistant around.
Yeah, this is a good introduction of those characters, and it shows both of their personalities very clearly. You have Mayor Lionheart, who's very pompous. He's got a big attitude. We hear him say, "My mammal inclusion program," like it's his idea, that kind of thing. He wants to really push that fact.
I guess that's, for the more mature crowd, that's a subtle hint or not too subtle hint at affirmative action.
Yeah, the mammal inclusion program. I thought that was an interesting name because when I first saw the movie, I thought like, oh, is the police force mainly not mammals? But then I realized every sentient character is a mammal in this, so it just means like person inclusion.
Yes,
you know?
because they consciously chose not to include avians, fish, insects, or reptiles, as well as primates in this movie. So we're getting all mammals in this one.
I think out of all the different other types of animals they could have included in the list of the sapient ones in this movie, fish would have been the most difficult to accommodate. I'm picturing like tubes filled with water going down city streets that fit, like the tube from Futurama.
Have you not seen that new BoJack Horseman episode? The
I
one
don't
that
watch
should
that
win
show.
Emmy. Oh my god. There is.
I've told you that before.
Okay, so BoJack has been impressing me season after season as like the best television show out there. In fact, it surpassed House of Cards as my favorite Netflix show, and it's very, very close to surpassing Breaking Bad and Moral Order, which are my two favorite television shows of all time. But there's one episode of BoJack. It's episode 4 in the most recent season, which I think is season 3, where it's kind of a fish out of water story, where BoJack is going to an award ceremony under the ocean, and he can't talk, and the fish speak in this very gurgling tone. So it's a silent episode, and it makes use of a lot of visual gags and a lot of artistic
of course.
visuals underwater. And it's so fantastic. It's an experimental episode, but so beautiful. It reminds me of the Doctor Who episode where it was just a doctor around the maze. This one is just BoJack underwater. He cannot talk. And at the very end, there is a amazing punchline, but then the song Sea of Dreams comes on, and it's just so perfect. Like, if there is one television episode that should win an Emmy, this is the episode.
Yes, we all know how much you love BoJack.
I just love the animal themed shows. My Little Pony, BoJack Horseman, Zootopia.
I'm sure there's been plenty of crossover fanfiction
Is there
involving all three.
I don't know. I like all these things. I like talking horses. I like talking animals. I like talking worlds full of animals. Is there a fandom that I could join that kind of encompasses all these different?
I don't think there
subcultures?
is a fandom just about anthropomorphic animals. I wish
think
there was.
we should start that. Should we call them zooies or something? Maybe we should start zoocons.
That's perfect.
And then we
I
could
think you're
have
onto
zoosonas. That would be a good
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
You're definitely onto something.
Like,
man.
you know, in the pony fandom, there's people who have pony sonas, which are
That's
pony
right.
representation of themselves. We should have animal representation of ourselves called zoo sonas. I mean, it's just too perfect. I don't know why anyone thought of this before.
Yeah, I think we should take this to market. That's a perfect idea.
You know,
for
it's
sure.
funny because the ancient Egyptians were mashing their animals and humans together. They worshipped gods that had dog heads, okay?
Mhm.
I'm surprised it took so many millennia before we finally came up with this
Oh.
brilliant idea.
Have I told you why I like the concept of all these mythical creatures so much?
What do you mean by mythical? I
Well,
mean, like
okay,
what?
I just enjoy, the Greek mythological creatures or like any things that are chimera type
I
things that are
love chimeras.
combinations of different animals
Oh,
because
like,
what it means is that it's either these people thought up or they saw a real thing that they can't quite describe, and so they're using vocabulary that they already have to try and
mm,
describe it. So it's like, oh, a griffin is the body of a lion, but like the wings and head of an eagle. Like, say that's based on some real animal that's now extinct or something that these people really saw.
it's funny because I kind of studied this in my genetics class, why different
Mhm.
subcultures develop the things. In fact, it's not just around the Greek or Mediterranean cultures. You have the Aztecs and Chinese also doing the same thing.
Yeah. But my
And
point really is that even if this animal doesn't look exactly like a lion with an eagle's head and wings, all that really accomplishes by using that description means that it's some sort of animal with four legs, wings, and maybe a beak or something.
what do you
And
know? Do you know the big theory of how they developed these creatures was? It's
I'm sure there's a
because they
few.
found fossils and they found bones that were out of place or mismatched.
Hmm.
So, for example, the idea of how why the Chinese started believing in Chinese dragons was because they found old serpent-like dinosaur
Yeah,
bones,
dinosaur
which
bones.
looked like that, or why people in Europe believed in Cyclops were because they found mammoth skulls, and the mammoth skulls has a giant hole in the middle that looks like
Hmm.
one giant eye. And what you're talking about, the chimera creatures, is because sometimes you'll find fossils of two animals together or two sets of skeletons, partial sets of
Hmm.
skeletons together. So, for example, you might find an avian skeleton with a lion-like beast, and that will get the idea of maybe there might have been something called a griffin. Same as the unicorns. The unicorns, a lot of the
Narwhal.
times they would find the narwhal, or they would find there's an ancient species that I think is closely related to the antelope that has a long horn like that, and they would find these. It would have a very equine-like body and just one solid horn,
Hmm.
and that's where they got the unicorn from. So there is actually some theories behind why humans have created these mythical creatures across the different
Hmm.
parts of the world.
And that same theory applies to other things too. Have you ever have you ever watched Ancient Aliens? I'm sure you would enjoy it just for like ironic
Okay,
reasons.
I have watched it because it's funny because my mom she was a hardcore atheist up until she married my dad, and my dad was very religious and became atheist when I was a kid.
Interesting.
We used to like that stuff. Like when we drove back home at night, we used to listen to Coast to Coast with Art Bell and George
Yes,
Norrie, and we would listen
Art
to all
Bell.
these
Oh my
stories. They were
gosh,
amazing,
I love it.
and we would love these things because my mom she converted to Taoism when she married my dad, and she believed in a lot of this mythical stuff. On the other hand, my dad, after joining the Marine Corps, working as a helicopter pilot and working as an engineer in the nuclear power plant, kind of became a more rational type person. While my mom would kind of watch these shows with us, like Ancient Aliens, for fun, after
Mhm.
she would leave the room, my dad would basically ask me, okay, son, so can you describe how they explain these events using rational terms and real world logic? So it become kind of like a logic Sherlock Holmes type deduction game with us, where if we saw a video of like a ghost or a Bigfoot, I would have to try to explain it using human means. So my
Yeah.
dad and mom would like these. My mom would because it like continues her beliefs in these myths that she
Hmm.
grew up with, and my dad because it was like a good logic puzzle to play with me as a kid. But yeah, I do love Ancient Aliens. It's mixed. I love some of the early episodes before they got too
Sure.
crazy.
Well, what I was going to say is that that same sort of theory can apply to that, where, these ancient cultures would describe things that, modern people might say, oh, that's like a spaceship or
Hmm.
something. Like, for instance, in the Vedas, I forget what they're called, but there's these big flying temples,
Yes.
basically, that have like fire underneath and they make this low rumbling sound as they go. And it's like described in there. And so it's that same principle where it's these people see something they can't explain and they're using
Or
their
the
everyday
Ezekiel's
vernacular.
wheel. It's another
Yeah.
one.
They're using everyday vernacular terminology to describe something indescribable.
But what I found was Ancient Aliens actually took a lot of these stuff out of context. There's
Oh, of
actually
course.
there's a good YouTube video that actually debunks a lot of these claims in Ancient Aliens, and they talk specifically about the Vedas, about the quote unquote flying sky ships that the Hindu gods would use, and the descriptions that ancient aliens are citing can be found nowhere in the Vedas. Like they're just pulling them out of thin air. So a lot of this stuff is completely out of context, which is kind of sad because if that was the case, that would be really cool. I think that would
Yeah,
prove
it'd be
for something.
compelling if it wasn't
But
so.
in reality, that is not the case. But I think the closest modern equivalent we could actually think about this is the cargo cults. Do you know about the cargo cults?
Oh yeah, of course. Yes. See,
Yeah,
that's actually
like
been discussed on that show as
John
well.
from John Navy, or even the my favorite, the cargo cult around Prince Philip.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what what the cargo cults were, I think it's a phenomenon that's happened in several places in the world, but I think most notably was in Africa, if I'm not
No,
mistaken.
actually, it's the Pacific Islands.
Or yeah, Pacific Islands.
Specifically during the Japanese and American occupations during World War.
Yeah. So
Two.
and so the idea was that these natives would see airplanes, and occasionally things would fall from them or things would be dropped from them, and they have no clue what an airplane is. They have no concept of it. So to them it's just this insane, it might be like a mythical creature or something. And so these religious sects formed based on worshiping these planes, and they would even build these towers because they knew that they would land in these places that have those big watchtowers for air traffic control.
That was the thing that really got me, was they tried to replicate what they saw the American military do.
Yeah.
So like the American military, of course, to land planes, we have to have airstrips, we have to have flags, we have to have towers to signal people. And of course, on these bases, you'll have people in uniforms marching around with guns and formation. And you see these cults actually build replicas of airstrips and planes and towers with bamboo, and they'll march around with bamboo sticks in uniform trying to act like the American soldiers, and they thought this was a ritual to attract these sky gods from the sky and would drop them food.
It's basically all of this stuff, mythical creatures, the whole UFO thing, all of that. It really plays off of the third of Arthur C. Clarke's 3 laws, which said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. It's the same thing where if you took an iPhone from our time and brought it back to medieval ages, they'd think you were a witch or something.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's funny because let's say someone with advanced technology actually came back to our time and tried, but didn't have the proper terms to explain it because our vocabulary or knowledge wouldn't be as advanced. We would kind of write it off as magic or pseudoscience until we actually got to the point where we were advanced enough to understand it.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's actually kind of interesting because it took a Zootopia podcast to get us talking about this, because I actually tried to start a paranormal theme podcast actually
I'd be
last
all
year.
over that.
I actually had a few of my friends. We recorded a 3-hour straight session where we just talked about random stuff like shadow people and Bigfoot and like the Russian experiments and stuff. And it was so fun.
The Russian sleep experiment.
Oh, like, okay, my favorite ones are Project Rainbow or the Philadelphia experiment, where apparently there was like a U.S. ship that would time travel
that
or
teleported.
teleport.
And yeah.
The Davidoff Pass, where like all those people were found like just
outside of their
tents
tents that had been cut
torn
open.
out, yeah, from the inside.
And some dude's tongue was missing.
Oh yeah, or the Tuscanga explosion, which was an explosion in the Siberian forest, which was bigger than any atomic bomb we had up to date.
Yes, and it was Nikola Tesla's death ray that did it.
Yeah, a lot of people think that. Like, and then it got to the creepy stuff like shadow people and living dolls and so much. See, there's so much good stuff, but. Too bad it's not Halloween anymore, or else we would have a spooktacular special where we'd be talking about this stuff. But maybe sometime. Maybe we will get to a point where we could have a Patreon, and maybe if people are interested, they could fund an episode where we just talk about spooky stuff.
So, by the way, guys, thank you for putting up with this rambling on a topic only tangentially related to Zootopia. Please feel free to give us feedback on how we're doing on this podcast. We know we can get a little bit off topic at times, but we always try to...
It's funny. I think I do like the off-topic things, and some of my friends like it as well, but then some other friends say, I just want to listen to the Zootopia stuff, so it seems kind of split, but I think we'll find our audience eventually.
But speaking of Zootopia, back on topic...
Judy's an alien?
That's a good segue right
Well,
there.
it ends with okay, so we see Mayor Bellwether, or Assistant Mayor Bellwether. I don't know why I keep on forgetting assistant. She's been mistreated by Mayor Lionheart, and at the end, we kind of see her go up to Judy and says, "Thank you for representing, us small folks. We have to stick together." And you kind of see that this is one of our first. Well, we've seen signs of it in the past, but we really see a clear sign of class divide in this culture between the predators and the prey, and
Yeah.
seeing especially the small prey, which are easily hunted like sheep and bunnies.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the main points of this scene is to set up that dichotomy. You've got the big mayor who's giant, like his physical stature is huge compared to Assistant Mayor Bellwether. He's very pompous. He's full of himself. We see that it's my mammal inclusion program, and then in contrast to that, Assistant Mayor Bellwether is already kind of portrayed as being clumsy because she forgets about Judy's badge. She's just standing there awkwardly.
Yeah. Well, I think she's in awe with one of my people is finally getting
Yeah.
this honor.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I hadn't really thought of that.
Which is interesting because if we think of the prey as the people that are feared in the society, in the predators, the fact that they have a lion as mayor is a unique take because the people were, I guess, trusting enough that they would elect a predator as mayor in the highest position.
Well, I think it's been long enough since the agreement because that's portrayed earlier in the movie as being like an ancient thing. Like there's been peace between predator and prey for a while now.
And it also shows it doesn't, if they are a democratic system, it's not based on, I guess, predatory and prey line because they said that only in this world, as mirroring our real world, 10% of the population is predator and the 90% is prey. So if in fact it was only predators who voted for predator mayor, he would not have been elected. So it shows that a large portion of the prey have to really like or be okay with predators to be elected in that form.
Such a progressive society.
Yes.
I think that number actually reflects real world statistics about how many animals are carnivorous versus.
Oh yeah, that's I think the creators of this movie, that's actually when they changed the movie. So initially, if you guys don't know, it was going to be like a James Bond style spy movie. And once they heard the statistics that in the real world, 10% of almost any ecosystem is predator and 90% is prey, and they thought that represented the class dynamic of the United States, they instantly changed the direction they were going with the movie.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, we've got a really good setup for the rest of the movie. And I love seeing how upset Judy's large family is at her getting in the very central precinct, the heart of the city.
The top of the
most
top.
Urban area. Yeah, they're like so happy for her, and then it's like, oh, that's gonna be dangerous.
Once again, she reminds me of myself because I didn't graduate valedictorian, but I graduated salutatorian from my military academy. Was all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed like she was, getting ready to jump into the real world. I hope her experience was better than mine.
Hopefully. She has been dreaming of it since she was a kid, so. All right, well, I think that probably does it for this minute.
Yes. If you liked what we were chatting about, feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube or SoundCloud, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Zootopia Minute or on Tumblr at zootopiaminute.tumblr.com. And if you have any suggestions, like do you like us rambling off topic? Do you like us sticking on topic? Do you like our idea about starting a fandom based around anthropomorphic animals?
Do you like waffles?
Yeah. Then you could email us at zootopiaminute@gmail.com. Everything we have is probably Zootopia Minute at something. So
If you
very
don't know,
simple.
that's a good guess right there. All right, we'll see you in the next minute. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Bye.